All right, ladies and gentlemen, the wait is finally over. Registration for CONEXPO-CON 2026 is open. With 2,000 exhibitors, 2.9 million square feet packed with cutting-edge equipment, technology, and the best minds in construction. You won't want to miss it. The best part? You can save 40% on show admission right now by using code PODCAST40. This offer is good through Friday, September 12th, so you better buy those tickets soon and join us in Las Vegas next March. Welcome back, everybody, to the CONEXPO-CON podcast. I am your host, as always, Taylor White. With me here today, I have the third-time reigning champion coming back to me here. This is the third time that we have sat down together. We have done an in-person one, or did we not? Maybe that was just YouTube Live. Yeah, it was YouTube. I got a good buddy of mine here, Dylan Mercier of D2 Contracting, all the way from Howell, Michigan. Thanks, Dylan, for being here, dude.
Thanks for having me again. I'm surprised they wanted me on a third time.
Yeah, I mean, you're pretty much poster child for ConExpo now. No, man, I'm super pumped that you're here. I was just down seeing you. A little bit of backstory for everybody at home. Me and Dylan are fairly good buddies. Dylan is a good dude. He's got his own business going on. Maybe if this was somebody, just listening for the first time, recap maybe what you do.
All right. I own D2 Contracting. We do general site work for middle of the road scale projects from a municipal, commercial, industrial standpoint. So a lot of pre-engineered metal buildings. We do underground earthwork. This summer, we're working on a couple fire stations at a community center for one of the townships around here. We're building a couple private jobs. Some bigger pre-engineered metal buildings. I think one's like 30,000 square feet, and another one's like 60. On the hook for possibly some more, but we do all kinds of stuff. And then we do a lot of underground emergency repair contracts for some local municipalities around here. And we dabble with wastewater and water treatment plants as well. Most of it being like upgrades, but only because there's not a lot of new plants that go up around here just because most of the infrastructure is existing already, but all kinds of things.
You've been really busy, and it's really interesting. I think the first time I was talking with you, you were working for somebody else. Second time was first year in business. Are you in your third or second year this year?
Yeah, we'll be 3 years old on July 27th.
Dude, that is insane. I had something written here I kind of wanted to ask you about because I've never really gotten to ask you this, but like over the past 3 years from like when you started doing your own thing to now, two parts, like how have you changed over the years? Like both personally and in business to make it so that you're doing what you're doing? And then what would you tell yourself starting out 2 years ago, three years ago?
Well, how have I changed? I think the biggest thing is like, I've definitely become a more humble person. Before, I think there was a little bit of ego in the way. And I've slowly learned that this is so much harder than it looks. I kind of thought it was pretty easy when I first started out. Like, oh, this is easy. I can get the work. I can perform the work. But as you grow and get more work, I've learned that really performing the work and quality control is a big thing. And so when you start branching off and getting a couple crews going, it's super hard to keep all your customers happy. And that was like a big learning lesson for me last year. And I'm still kind of dealing with it this year. But that's a really tough question. But I think this last year, going into this year, I became a lot more humble. I've respected the hustle a lot more.
What would you tell yourself like 3 years ago starting out? What would you tell yourself now knowing what you know?
Slow down. I maybe would have taken on some smaller jobs in the beginning that I kind of shied away from starting out, where I could have made a little bit more money to help our cash flow. Whereas like I was really looking at the bigger picture. I like the bigger jobs, the more complex jobs. But now we're like in the full swing of things and it's kind of hard to go back. So I've just learned to deal with the stress and chaos that comes from these bigger projects. But I wouldn't have it any other way. But I think if I could have started a little bit differently, I would have gone maybe a tad bit slower. Last year kind of slapped me in the face. And this year, I know what I'm getting into, so it helps. But it's still tough to go through the day-to-day and manage all these. That's the biggest thing, is managing these bigger projects, document control. Like I said, just quality control. It's super tough, and you got to trust people. And yeah, I think that's probably the best way I can kind of put that without getting way too deep into it.
Yeah, well, you touched on a good point about like you kind of started off on like larger jobs. Because I remember when you first started and I was like, damn, dude. And you're like, you're doing these 6-figure jobs right off the bat, and like big 6-figure jobs. And I was like, holy, Dylan's just going straight into it. So a question I had here was like risk, like high risk versus low risk. I always found it kind of interesting because you're definitely a high risk guy. You definitely like taking the high risk. Is that something that you think you just kind of have within you? And you touched on it when you talked about like being able to deal with the stress and cash flowing and all that. But would you recommend somebody goes the high risk route versus low risk? Because to me, you went the high risk route, and it's paying off and it's working. You're still year 3, but you're still here, and you're still going. But like you've also managed to do this all without like running on like a line of credit or all that stuff. Like that's super impressive.
I think it varies. It all comes down to like how much you know on the back end too, because that's like the biggest thing. That these jobs that have a lot more risk with, maybe I guess you could consider some better pay. Obviously, if you perform and you meet the job deadline and pass all your testing at the end of the job, et cetera, et cetera. Higher risk, is it worth it? Like I kind of touched on it. There's definitely like some times where I could have taken the lower risk jobs and maybe made some more money. But again, I think my ego kind of got in the way, and I like these bigger projects, which is, I think for me to admit that was like a big thing, because I wouldn't have been able to do that even a year ago or before that. I was always chasing like the biggest jobs, and I'm glad I didn't get some of those bigger jobs because I would have screwed up royally. We landed in a really sweet spot where we were taking on some medium-sized jobs, going into some bigger jobs, and it helped, to kind of learn on some of those medium-sized jobs before we got into the bigger ones. But from a risk standpoint, like now I feel like I do a better job at, assessing the risk prior to like bidding the project. For instance, there's a job that I just turned down. We kind of work in a 20, 30 square mile radius, and this one was kind of outside of our work area. And I felt really good about the price, and it was a tricky job for sure because it's on an existing manufacturing plant, but I turned it down just because the risk involved with it, if we couldn't perform, and I couldn't keep this customer happy because it was so far outside of our work area, it would have caused a lot of turmoil just internally and also with that contractor. So I turned it down. Whereas before, like last year, I probably would have taken it on and screwed up and probably pissed somebody off.
Being able to say no.
Yeah, you got to be able to say no.
That's a good spot to be in, though.
It also means you need to bid a little bit higher too, though. If you're winning jobs like that, I've learned that too. That's a big thing.
Yeah. So what do you mean? So like if people are, if you keep winning and winning and winning, maybe it's like, hey, maybe I should like jack up my prices or increase my prices accordingly so that, I'm getting a little bit higher profit margin because maybe I'm a little too cheap because I'm winning everything.
Yeah, that's one thing too. Like it comes in waves, and I'm sure you know this, and maybe a lot of people listening know this too. Like you feel like you go a month or two, maybe even 3 months where you don't win anything, and then all of a sudden 4, 5, 6 months in, you win 6, 7 jobs in a row. And then you'll go a month without really winning anything, maybe win a project, and then you win 2 or 3. And like this past month, we just won everything we were bidding. And I have slowly started to raise our prices up a little bit. And it seems to kind of steadied out a little bit, which is nice because I was getting a little worried there for a while.
You said that you were good at doing stuff. And I know that, kind of like focusing on what you need to focus on. And I found that interesting because I know that we've spoken before, and you're the type of guy that oh yeah, I won't look at that because that's just going to mess me up, or I don't even want to see that guy's stuff or this girl's stuff or whatever. To me, it's like you've always blocked out the noise, and I've always found that interesting. Like you don't want to pay attention to that because of this reason or that reason, and you kind of just want to focus on yourself and your own lane. Like, can you touch on a little bit of that? And explain, like, you must know that you're like that, right? Like, I don't want to see this. I just got to look at this. If I see that, that's going to just like mess me up.
Yeah, it's horrible for you. From an internet standpoint, like Instagram, TikTok, it took me a long time to be able to see other people, even like, and someone like you, like a good friend of mine, or like some of our other good friends, like to be able to watch some of the things you guys would post, or like just see what you're doing on a day-to-day basis. And you're like, oh, why can't I be there? Why can't I be there? It took me a long time to realize that. And the biggest thing I took away from that is like, obviously still looking at the bigger picture, but not letting it totally consume your everyday reality, because that's where it gets like screwed up. And I think some people definitely get lost in that. The way I look at it, and especially like the guys who work for me, I just always tell them like, we do cool stuff and nobody does anything cooler than us, which I know that's not, at the end of the day, it's not true. I may think that, and I may try and like portray it that way, but I always just kind of look at everything you're doing. And even, some of the other contractors that work in our area, I always drive by their job sites. I'm like, man, that's cool, but what we're doing is just as cool. I don't know. I try not to think about it too much, because if you do, it'll screw you up. And I'm sure you could probably agree with that. It's one of those things where you just stay in your lane and do what you got to do and keep the people you're working for happy, and everything will kind of work out.
Yeah, you got to keep the noise out. And yeah, I just always thought that was interesting, because we talk about stuff and you'd be like, oh, I didn't even want to watch that or see that, because like I just like got to do my own thing. And I think that there's a lot to be learned from that though as well too. I mean, you went from doing everything yourself to now you have a good number of employees, you got your shop, you're getting machinery. And then speaking of machinery, I know like this year you bought a few pieces, but then you also rent a few pieces as well too. I know like a lot of people have different perspectives on renting versus buying, and it's a topic of discussion, but I'm curious to hear like your opinion on renting versus buying, because you'll just rent like rock trucks for like 4 months, or like that 84-inch drum roller that's sitting in your shop. I came back here and I texted my cat salesman. I'm like, man, I need a roller. Like our 54-inch drum roller's not working. But then it's like the rental on that thing was, like $7,000 a month they wanted up here. So I'm just like, it's interesting, and obviously, and then talk into it too as well, because you're looking at like rental purchase offers as well too, right? So like all the money you're putting towards rent, and at the end of it, you want to buy it, that money goes down towards you buying it, which is a really good way of doing it too, right? Like rental purchase agreements. Talk a little bit about that, because you have a really mixed fleet of rented versus bought.
I guess the best way to put it is like, for like us, bidding season is from like January to March, April. Once April rolled around, and I'm constantly like staying in touch with, our equipment manufacturer, our equipment dealerships, about like updated pricing, and like trying to work out deals with them throughout those months. Like, hey, if I get this job, XYZ jobs, and I can line them up perfectly to where we keep a piece of equipment for 5 months, like what kind of rate can you give me for that 5 months, or that 6 months, or 4 months? And usually they're pretty apt to like work with you. So once I line enough jobs up, and obviously the reason I go to them beforehand too is because I want to know that cost for a bidding standpoint too, because then it helps me be a little bit more competitive versus like just taking your basic rental price on a monthly basis from any or dealership around here and just be like, okay, roller $7,000 a month, great. But if you call your cat salesman up or whoever, and you're like, hey, I want to run a roller for 4 or 5 months and maybe buy it at the end, like what kind of rate can we get? It's kind of crazy. And when I tell people this, most people are kind of like, you can really do that? You can get a better price if you explain to them like, hey, I want to buy this and I also want to rent it for half the year. But obviously you have to keep the piece of equipment busy too. So you want to make sure you have the jobs lined up. And once April, May rolls around, and I know I have like boom, 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 boom jobs, we can go from project to project to project, and I keep taking these pieces of equipment with me. That's kind of when I make that decision to pull the plug. And I'm like, all right, I call whoever we're getting the piece of equipment from, and I'm like, hey, send this out. We're going to have it till November. I want it on RPO. And obviously there's a lot of interest that goes into that, because it's not super beneficial for them to just rent me a piece of equipment for 6 months and say $7,000 of rent goes into it. And then by the end of the 6 months, I've spent quite a bit of money, and the equipment's still worth something to them. So there is some interest that builds up. But for me, it works better for us too, just because we don't have the credit backing going into our third year, or at the end of our third year. It's still pretty tough to get financing. Like I have to put some pretty hefty down payments down, and that's not something you want to be doing in the middle of July when you owe suppliers and trucking companies hundreds of thousands of dollars. So it helps, because once the year ends, that's when I go back to whoever I'm doing the RPO deal with, December, January. And I'm like, hey, that worked out. I know we're going to use it again next year. Like, let's work out a deal. But the biggest thing for me is just like all winter long, I spend going back and forth with whoever we're working with from a dealer standpoint, like trying to get the best pricing from a rental standpoint, which it worked out for us this year. And we got some pretty good pricing on a couple of pieces of equipment that if I would have just rented by the month and not mentioned any of the possible future deals, I think the pricing would have been a hell of a lot different.
Yeah. And then you also, beginning of this year, you bought a dozer and a shovel, right?
Yep. Yeah. 323 and that D3.
How have those been?
323 is great. It's a great size machine.
The dozer or the shovel was more expensive?
Oh, the 323 was, for sure. We wanted a D4.
Okay. And you bought the D3?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And are you looking at it now being like, dang, I should have bought a D4?
Yeah.
Yeah. I see that job you're on right now. You could use a D5 on that.
Yeah. We have like a 1.6 foot cut on the parking lot. It's just like, thank gosh we have the side truck out there because we're able to just pretty much, you know, do all our rough grade cuts with the excavator and the side truck. And then the dozer comes and trims it all. But it's still like when we're filling another side of the site and we do have to do some cutting with that D3. And then I have a D4 on RPO right now. So it helps a little bit. But in a perfect world, I would have rather have bought that D4 this past winter and had like a D5 on rent for a couple months this summer or something. Because some of these sites are pretty big. So like the D3 would be great for like the parking lots, like doing all the stone in the parking lots and like building pads, pushing sand and stuff. But other than that, like any like actual earth moving, it's it's like using a skid steer in a parking lot or something. It's just not very fun.
Yeah. Well, your work is large, right? Like you said, you first started off and you got into, larger commercial projects. And I mean, I know you're on some smaller projects as well, but majority of your work is larger projects. And anybody who checks out your Instagram right now as well too can see your stories. You're on large earth moving project right now. So, I feel like that's a good sized dozer, but, maybe D4 or possibly in the future for you, like a D5, something that's high track that can, push a little bit more earth. Definitely. But knowing you'll probably get one on RPO in the next month after this because you'd be like, yeah, I should. That'd be awesome.
He's so sweet.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. He's right. Your work ethic. I don't know if I've ever asked you, just what motivates you? What motivates Dylan? What motivates you?
What motivates me? For one, and this is, you're going to love this. It pains me for this to come out of my mouth, but I'm going to say it anyways, just for you and give you a little pep boost today. I've always been pretty inspired by you yourself, like your whole work harder deal. One of those days, I'm going to get my first tattoo and put it somewhere, maybe like right up here or something.
Yeah, CONEXPO 2023 style.
And just the fact that your business, and I know you and your dad pretty well, and seeing how you guys have all kind of kept it in the family and passed it down to each other, and how excited you are to get your kids involved in it. I think is a cool thing. For me, it's a little bit different. I grew up around a family business, but it was completely, it was polar opposite of what I do now. My parents own a painting company, so it's totally different. But the future for what's to come for me kind of drives me to do well. And I also, I don't know, it's cool to hear people say they're proud of me and they think what I'm doing is awesome. Like for it to come from somebody like you or my father or my parent, like my mother, some of my friends, Lauren, any of those. I mean, it's cool to hear. So I think that's kind of what keeps me going.
Yeah. Well, it's nice to hear. I mean, I definitely agree with you on that. Like, it is cool for you to also mention about the passing on generations, because although you can't look at me and be like, well, oh, and he started his own thing and he did this, but it's cool the perspective of looking at it and being like, man, I would, one day like to do that with my kids, the dynamic that they have, that's pretty neat as well too. So that's what motivates you. But how do you stay motivated?
Short answer, money.
Yeah, it keeps you going, man.
No, I know, and that sounds super ignorant.
Oh, but there's a part of it. You're right, though. There is a part of it. That's what keeps me motivated is I mean, and we don't go into details here, but we both showed each other our company accounts, and it's what keeps me going. I know what keeps you going, right? It's there's no coasting.
No, and I'm a horrible people person, and I'm hoping in the near future I can find somebody to manage my employees on a day-to-day basis.
You need that. You need that.
Yeah, dude, I know. Showing up every day and watching some of these people who've worked for me for a year grow or even 2 years is the coolest thing ever. And also growing close to those guys and the fact that some of them have come to me for personal issues in their life, it's just that's cool too. I think the camaraderie side of it, the team side of it, although I may not be the best day-to-day leader, it's still super cool to see. And I think that's without, all of us working together, I think those guys would be somewhere else and probably not be as happy and not gotten the opportunities that I've been able to give them. And I think that is the truth. And because I was in that position. So
shout out Dante. You, you definitely give people opportunities that they normally wouldn't receive. And I think that, again, that goes back to you taking a high risk, is because like you take on these guys where you're not necessarily like, oh, okay, you're you know how to run a dozer, you know how to run an X-ray. You're like, all right, you're a good dude, you got a good work ethic, you're young, you're hungry. All right, cool, I'll hire you and I can teach you all the other stuff. But I think it's pretty cool that you mentioned, you know, like, hey, day in, day out, I might not be the best leader for everybody. I agree. I think you're a fantastic leader, but I agree that you need somebody to manage your people day in and just keep you kind of like honed in on focused on what you need to do. I just think that it's really important to like understand and ask yourself. And I want to ask you, like, what would be your ideal? Like, what are your strengths and what is your ideal? Like, this is my role within my business and this is what I do.
My strengths, I like to sell. I like the chase. I like chasing the new work, chasing a new clientele. I like getting the work. I'd say that's my favorite part of the business side of things.
Like estimating or like getting the connection and then getting the work.
Getting the connection.
Yeah. Not sitting in front of a computer and playing Swift going click, 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 click.
I mean, I can do it and I've been doing that. And I still ultimately, like, you know, as time, you know, as we move forward with things and I find some people to help me with that, I think I'll still be sort of involved with that. But obviously getting the work, not so much the paperwork side of things, and then performing the work, I think are by far like the coolest things. And then just the connections that come out of it, the people you meet from suppliers, trucking companies, subcontractors, specialty contractors. All of it's fun from a business standpoint. Like, you know, we mentioned earlier, you know, managing people on a day-to-day basis, not one of my strengths, but definitely dealing with people in the scheduling side of things with, you know, some of the trades we work with. I enjoy talking to the people I get to talk to every day, which is cool.
I totally would agree. And I know that we kind of touched on that whenever I was talking down there with you. And I think, you know, you were working on something, hopefully bringing somebody in. And I'm not sure where that's at, if it did work out or.
I got a new CFO starting July 7th.
Well, congrats, man. I'm happy.
Yeah. Took a long time.
Yeah. So by the time this podcast is out, he's already working for you. So fantastic. Good job, man. Proud of you. That's a big step.
Yeah, it'll be great. I'm really looking forward to it. He's brilliant. He's smarter than I am tenfold. And
that's what you need.
His strengths outweigh all of my weaknesses. So it's perfect.
That's awesome. Sounds like perfect marriage.
Well, we'll see. But I hope so.
One cool thing I wanted to chat with you about, and I guess a little bit of backstory for people listening, if this is your first time. Like, I met Dylan through social media, and, you know, we started chatting back and forth when he worked for somebody else. Since then, I think we've both seen social media go, you know, like different trends and, you know, different people to watch and different people to follow. I want to ask you, because like, obviously you're locked in on social media stuff. You used to post more videos and do more videos, which hopefully you continue to try to do more of in the future, because you have a really creative mind for it and you have the brain to make like content. And whether that's doing it to somebody else, like with me, like having somebody else do it, but giving them direction and being like, hey, like this would be kind of cool and use this type of music, because you have that brain. And I think that's actually what will take your business to the next level. Once you have that guy that can help do what you're talking about and pick up on the stuff that you're not so great at, like you said. But looking at social media as a whole right now, like what trends do you see right now that like you like or you don't like, or what direction do you see construction social media going in? Yeah. Construction social media as a whole. Like, what's your take on it right now?
My biggest takeaway is over the last 2 years, everybody figured out you could buy a DJI drone. It does all the color grading for you. You could clip it up on CapCut or something and post a video. So the days of posting a TikTok video or reel or just anything with, you know, 5 or 6 different clips and beat changes are over. I've seen enough of those.
That's what worked before though, right? Like that's what worked. And that's what's crazy. Like that's what made us blow up, is because I taught myself how to edit. And I was like, oh, dang, I could use this trap remix of Waka Flocka and put it on the clips of a dozer. And people were like, whoa, oh my God, this is crazy. it's funny, but it's very true. And like now everybody's doing it, right? Like everybody is doing that sort of thing. So like, okay, now we've situated that we're here. Like, what's kind of the next? And like, where do you see it going, or where do you want to see it going?
You have to include personality. Like, you guys do a good job of including personality. I see some other people on the internet, I won't name names, but like, you include maybe a little clip of some talking, or one of the guys just saying something totally out of pocket, or guys or girls, doesn't matter. Like the post that you got on Barstool, where what's his name was doing the Lil Uzi Vert. Yeah, like something like that, that people can actually like relate to. And it's like that same kind of stuff happens on their job sites. It's just nobody gets it on video. And that's the best thing. Nobody wants to see, you know, the videos we just talked about. Nobody wants to see the boring, like, happy Memorial Day, happy 4th of July, happy Canada Day
Stagnant picture.
Yeah. I will say I saw a super great Father's Day post from a big company around us, where they had different photos of all the different, all the men that work for them and their kids. And they did a really good job of like putting it all together. Whereas like most people would just post like a big group picture and it's like happy Father's Day. Lately, like I've been really disconnected from LinkedIn because it seems to be like the same people over and over again saying like, this is what you need to do to be a better contractor, and selling these, I don't know if they're what you want to call them, consulting.
I'm so indifferent about LinkedIn, man. Like, it's funny because the last time we talked, you're like, LinkedIn is where it's at. And yeah, you did post a lot on LinkedIn.
Oh, it's great.
I don't know. I just find it like, I don't look at my messages on there because all my messages are like, hey, thanks for the ad. Have you heard, like, do you want to recruit, or are you looking for, 10x your sales and this and that? And maybe some of those people could help, maybe they couldn't. I just find it really salesy.
It seems like somewhat fake almost, sometimes. Like I got sick of seeing people who don't do this every day tell you how to do things. For a while, it was working. I think a lot of people did super well off that, but I don't know. I've been thinking lately, like I like to share our work on LinkedIn because it does reach a lot of people, especially locally. That was the one reason I liked it. And I still meet people. Like I just met somebody at a golf outing last week who was like, yeah, I've seen your stuff on LinkedIn. It's great. Like, it looks like you guys do a good job. And like, that is what I use it for. I am not super interested in reaching the audience, even, within 100 miles of us, like, different states, different territories. Like it's really about like the local side of things. But I don't know, social media seems kind of dead right now, but there's still people putting out good content. I like the stories.
Yeah, I like the stories as well too. But it's like for us, it's funny because like Instagram used to be the place where we'd be like, dropping F bombs and stuff like that. And we've kind of changed it now to where like that's kind of our TikTok, but actually it's just like not us, because like I'm trying to represent the company in a really professional way that is modern and makes it fun, obviously, but isn't totally like out of pocket. And recently, what I did, and I'm not sure maybe if you noticed, but like Jake, my videographer, in-house videographer, he's doing everything now. Like he's actually posting. So it's the first time I've actually like let somebody into our account on TikTok and Instagram and like post for me, because I was just finding it really, I was struggling. Like my desk right now, if you could see like below here, like everyone's off today. I'm the only one in here. And it's just like paperwork with like our GC business, Ken White stuff, like load tickets that I'm supposed to be invoicing. And it's just like, I went home and I just like didn't have the time for it. So I delegated that aspect to it. And I think he's doing a good job of like changing the posting up, or like having posts where it has like photos and then photos within the photos, or like our video content, kind of like splitting it up different.
I like the 3-tier.
Yeah, like he's just doing different things. I think that I definitely didn't think of, and maybe if it was my full-time job, I would think of like that next best thing. But for me, I always find it an interesting conversation, especially with you. You're in the know-how with what's trending or social media or stuff like that. And I just think sometimes I get lost in trying to figure out like, okay, what is that next thing? But I think you nailed it with saying like personalities, people on there, like showing the culture, showing what it's like, and showing your work, but finding that line of being like professional about it, so that if a big client came and looked at it, it's like, all right, cool. I want to trust these guys on my job site. But it's a hard line because sometimes you just want to get on there and post like whatever, you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's why I tend to use the 24-hour stories as more of like I'm going to put whatever song or picture I want over this. Although it goes to the internet and it's out there forever, it disappears technically after 24 hours. Do you think social media still helps you from a hiring standpoint?
Oh, yeah. Like, oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Solely the only place. Like,
Do you guys still get a bunch of resumes like constantly?
listen, we get probably, I would say on average, it's because some days it could be 2, but some days it could be 12. I would say if you average it out, 4 resumes a day we get sent to us.
That's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, like every day, 4 consistent resumes. But the thing with social media is a lot of those guys are like, hey, I live in Montana, or hey, I'm in Australia, or hey, I'm in Finland, and they're not even around here. And it's like, all right, cool. But that's the only thing with social media is like, we were looking at it yesterday, actually, like our audience, our insights, like we're 55% United States of America. Over half of my audience is the United States. Then it's Canada, and then it's Austria, and then it's something else. It does help hiring, but it doesn't necessarily help us gain work. People think like, yeah, how much work are you actually gaining from social media? It's like, it's not really about that, but like none really, if I'm being honest.
Most people scrolling on TikTok and Instagram usually aren't, spending 10, 20 million on a new building.
No, exactly.
Your local operations of parks, your local city managers, they're not on there either. Trying to look for people to install new, sanitary sewer main or storm sewer. Not where they're at.
What's next for you? Obviously, big thing is you have the CFO coming in. That's a huge deal. But what is next for you? What's next for the team over at D2?
I want to solidify our clientele base. Everything from like the private design build / plan and spec contractors who maybe do a little bit of municipal, but mostly private. And then also the few municipalities we do work with, I really want to become like their go-to contractor for any emergency repairs, including new installs. And obviously some of the new installs, they do get bid out, but sometimes, although you have to be lowest bidder, there's some ways around that. But I don't know. I'm really just trying to develop our relationships and find the right teams and put the right people in the right places. I have no interest in obtaining any of these super large jobs only because I can't compete with some of these guys around here at the moment, just because we're kind of in a weird spot where we need to grow our workforce and also acquire quite a bit of more equipment before we can really jump to the next level. When I say acquire, I think there's only so many pieces of equipment I can rent, which kind of limits us to the size of job. Like I probably wouldn't take a job from a private standpoint, ground up construction that's over like 10 acres. We can move, and we've done it once. We can move about 35,000 yards in 2 weeks. And then anything after that, like we got a job that we're on the hook for with a couple other contractors locally, but award hasn't been announced yet. There's a job that's 58 some odd thousand yards of dirt to move. And I think that's like top, like that's about as high as I want to go at the moment. Then you start talking, scrapers and ADTs, site truck, like it's just, I don't have the.
I think, and my 2 cents, and everybody listening, I'm only Dylan's a good buddy of mine, so this is why I'm going to say this. I think the best thing for you is to hire the CFO, perfect where you're at right now, perfect this level, and then work on, boom, okay, we're going to take things to the next tier now. Perfect how to drive profit out of the size that you are, and how to, stack a little bit of money right now so it gives you a little bit more buying power in the future. But like perfect it before it gets too crazy and out of hand. And not that you're there at all. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying like going to the next step from where you're at right now, that's a big one.
Yeah, you start messing around with the big dogs and they'll chew you up and spit you out.
You got to have systems in place, right? You got to have all your documents digital and your tailgate forms are digital. And then you got to have your foremen reporting to your supers who are up to your coordinators. There's a ladder of stuff, and you're only one guy. You can't do everything in the office. I know you have help in the office, but yeah, and I know maybe that is kind of what you were saying. It's like, we're trying to just like do what we're doing now and then take things to that next level.
Yeah, raise the revenue a little bit, better profit margins, be sitting pretty. But we got a lot of stuff to figure out, and I've become, aware of it, and I'm okay with it. I've accepted it. I'm excited for what's to come. How about you? You need some advice?
Oh, I need a lot of advice, dude. The two businesses right now, it's crazy. But this podcast isn't about me. This podcast is about you. Which, and I was just saying, is I'm looking forward to the Con Expo this year. I know that you're going.
This is here.
Yeah, that's March coming up. Under a year left, March 3rd and 7th. I'm pumped for it. I was talking to Trent. I told you I was talking with him, and then I just talked to another guy the other day, and he's buddies with Trent, and he has a podcast as well too. He's in Arkansas.
Cy?
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw Trent on his podcast. Yeah.
Yeah, Cy Kirby. Yeah, I was talking with him, and anyways, it's just cool. Like a bunch of all these different people can get together and chat and hang out, and I think that's what I'm looking forward to. Is just getting a bit of a break and seeing you down there.
I'm excited. Look out for those brochures, everybody, when you go buy your tickets. You got me standing right up on the front, posted up with the old Volvo.
Listen, you're super busy. I'm going to let you go, and I thank you for coming on today. Oh, this podcast is brought to you by our good friends over at John Deere Power Systems. Thank you very much, John Deere Power Systems, for sponsoring the podcast. Dylan, thank you for coming on today. Hopefully somebody learned something from this. You're the classic awesome person for people to listen over this and be like, this is how you can do it. You start from nothing, and here you are. You're a 7-figure business now, well into the 7 figures, and you've cut yourself short sometimes. So you've done very well, and you should be really impressed with how well you've done, dude. I look up to you as well, so I really appreciate you being on here.
Thank you. And thank you, ConExpo, for letting me come on for a third time.
And that has been the ConExpo-CON podcast. We'll catch you guys on the next one. Take care.